Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
I'm not in charge of everything just yet, but I've mentioned before that if I was, I'd see to it that judges, police officers, and attorneys who break the law would get in trouble to the fullest extent possible. And I have a new caveat I'd like to add to that. And that is there are certain classes of crimes which, if committed by those people, should actually be elevated even further. Like double it, okay? And there's a reason I'm saying this. So here's an example I'm going to give you. Tom sent me this, thanks a lot, from NBC News. David K. Lee and Donna Mandel wrote it. Florida police officer accused of stealing dead man's credit card, using it for personal expenses, like Wendy's. A cold-hearted Florida police officer is arrested for allegedly stealing a dead man's credit card information and using it to make personal purchases, such as fast food and eyelashes, authorities said on Wednesday. The police officer from St. Cloud, she was taken into custody with her own handcuffs and booked on suspicion of theft of a credit card with intent to use, credit card fraud of more than $100, and use of the ID of a dead person, which is also a crime. That's all from the records from Osceola County Jail. The woman's 25 years old. She was on a routine call last month to a couple's home outside of Orlando where the husband had died. So someone called the police, and that's where she allegedly photographed the dead man's credit card and used that information to make purchases. So the Osceola County Sheriff told reporters, you've got to be pretty cold-hearted to go to someone's house where the husband or loved one has just passed away and start taking snapshots of a credit card. That's pretty cold, pretty ruthless. When asked if the suspect had any financial difficulties, which might have prompted the $450 credit card theft, the sheriff, rejected any excuses the now former officer might have. There's no excuse. I mean, if you're going to get your nails and eyelashes done and you're ordering food from Wendy's, I don't think your eyelashes justify a need and a financial situation that could explain this sort of behavior. The police officer had been on the job since August of 21, has no prior criminal record. The information uncovered during this investigation shocked and appalled me, said the police chief. It directly violated everything expected of our law enforcement officers. While the investigation is ongoing, the chief and the sheriff said Wednesday they have no evidence anyone else had their information swiped by this suspect. She was booked into custody early Tuesday evening and released about 2:30 a.m. Wednesday after posting a $4,000 bond. Jail records did not list if she had an attorney, and she could not be immediately reached for comment on Wednesday. So the allegation is that someone called law enforcement because someone died. Law enforcement comes into the house where the deceased person is, and while they're doing their job, one of the law enforcement officials sees a credit card, snaps a picture of it, and then uses that information inappropriately later on down the road. So what I talked about earlier is when police officers break the law, they need to have the book thrown at them. And I mean throw it hard, pick it up and throw it again, because law enforcement officers are supposed to be enforcing the law. So if they break the law, it's a problem, but not the least of which is they're setting a horrible example. And I've mentioned before, and I'll mention it one more time, probably never again, is that when I was a little kid, our parents and other elder people in our lives would tell us that you respect the police. And I know a lot of people say, Steve, but they don't deserve your respect now. I'm not talking about now. I'm talking about back when I was a little kid. And so when I was a little kid, they would tell us you respect the police. If you encounter a police officer, you help them. You answer their questions. You cooperate. Police officer pulls over and says, hey, did you see something? You say, yes, I did, or no, I didn't. Thank you, sir. And so if you're supposed to respect them, they should act respectably. And part of that would be enforcing law, but also following the law. So when you see somebody who is so utterly disregarded their job to the point where they're not even doing their job, but they're actually breaking the law when they're law enforcement, that's a serious issue. But I would say what makes this even worse is the only reason this woman was in the house of the deceased person was her job put her there. So when her job puts her inside someone else's house, instead of respecting it as this is someone else's house and I'm a guest here, she's looking around for stuff to steal. And so it actually means that not only was she not doing her job, but she's like moving the ball backwards the wrong way down the field. And so that's one where it's not that she's just breaking the law, but she's using her position and where it gets her to help her break the law. And so that to me is an example where you have to look at that and go, okay, if a person can get from this to this for this crime, and this is the bad side, and you're a police officer, well, boom, that's you. You're a police officer. That's you automatically get that. Is it possible to exceed the guidelines? Some states you can, with certain factors that they say will make things worse, right? What's one of those factors? The fact that you're a law enforcement officer and you're using your position to help you break the law, which you shouldn't be doing because you're law enforcement. I know some of this is painfully obvious, but I don't know. And so what I fear is what you fear. And that is 3 months from now, there's a very good chance we're going to hear a story of follow-up on this. And they're going to go, oh, remember the police officer who stole that dead guy's credit card? Yeah, it turns out that she cut a deal. They charged her with 3 crimes. She agreed to plead to 1. They dropped the other 2. And in exchange for that, they're going to charge it as a civil infraction, not a misdemeanor, not a felony. And she's going to pay a fine of $450, and we'll call it a day. And she's just not at this police department anymore. And the question is, number one, could she get hired someplace else? I don't know. But we do hear about that, police officers getting ousted from one place and popping up in another. And my concern is that someone's going to go, yeah, but it's only $450. It's only $450. Let's think about this from somebody else's perspective for just a split second. And by the way, I encourage you to do this in almost any story I tell you, okay? Don't just think about it from the viewpoint of somebody watching it from the side or just the viewpoint of the person who got arrested. But ask yourself the story because a man died and someone called the police. Someone called the authorities. Man died, law enforcement shows up, EMTs probably showed up. And I'm assuming that there may have been a wife. Let's assume that there was a wife involved. She's now a widow. Okay? So the widow is there. She's distraught. Her husband's deceased. Very, very sad. Flurry of activity because there's all these strangers in the house tramping in and out the front door and all kinds of stuff. Eventually, they all leave. Somebody gives her a card that says, here's who you need to contact to make arrangements, funeral and all that. So the widow's like, okay, that's rough. She starts making phone calls, let everybody know, and someone's going to come in and help her. And a little while down the road, she gets a notification that her husband's credit card is being used again. Now, this is not an example where someone's going to go, oh, maybe he's still alive. No, she knows he's not. But she's going to get a notice somewhere by form of a bill or a bank statement or something indicating that credit card is still being used. Now, I assume that that's why they caught this person, because she probably notified somebody and said, hey, my husband passed away, and his credit card suddenly started getting used a few days after he passed away. So at that point, somebody then did the legwork and tracked down and found out, oh, it was used at a Wendy's and a nail salon and someplace else. And at that point, it's not that hard to figure out who's using it. And somebody goes, oh, wait a second. This woman who's using it is a police officer. Oh, and she responded to the call where that man died. And it's his credit card. What are the odds? What are the odds? And I have a sneaky feeling, if they got a search warrant, which I hope they did, to search her phone, to look through the photographs, they could probably find a photograph taken that day of that credit card. And suddenly it all falls apart. So it's a crazy story. It looks like she profited $450 from this. And it cost her career. At least it cost her a job here. We'll see if it cost her career entirely. But she's 25 years old. She can find another career. But it's a crazy story. Like I said, if I was in charge, If I was the judge, you would not want to be in front of me on this one. You would not. Because the probation department would do their job and come up and say, well, here's the range from here to here. She's young. It's her first offense. Probably put it down here. And I'd be like, you know something? I appreciate the probation department doing their job with a pre-sentencing investigation. However, it is a belief of mine that law enforcement doesn't get treated like everyone else when they're in this courtroom. And if nothing else, it's simply because they're the ones who ought to know the law, but they're also the ones charged with enforcing the law. So there you go. NBC News, Florida police officer accused of stealing dead man's credit card and using it for personal expenses like Wendy's and eyelashes. David K. Lee wrote that along with Donna Mendel, and Tom sent it. Thanks a lot. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. Housework is something you do that nobody notices until you don't do it.